You need a clean, quick joke?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
I thought you were calling for it.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2016 Libertarian Party of North Carolina President. This is the fun part of our convention. We have the honor of having several of the people who are seeking the Libertarian presidential and vice presidential nomination. One gentleman seeking the vice presidential nomination of our party here with us this afternoon. We also have two, maybe three videos from other candidates that will show at the conclusion of the event. Let me start by introducing the candidates in no particular order, and then kind of going over the ground rules. First candidate is Keenan Dunham. Did I say that right? Okay. Gary Johnson, Kevin McCormick, Darryl Perry, Derrick Michael Reid, and William Coley. And what we're going to do this afternoon, we're going to give each candidate the opportunity for an opening statement of about 2 minutes. And then we have collected some questions from the delegates here, as well as some from online. And I just got another one. And so I will go through as many of these questions as we have time for. We're going to run to about 2:50. I've asked candidates, they'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement and a minute for response. And hopefully they'll stay within that time limit so we can answer as many of the questions as we can get through. Some of the gentlemen have been here for the day, and some will be with us for the remainder of the day, so you can ask the questions directly. Most of the questions that I'll ask are all the candidates will have an opportunity to answer. There's one or two that were directed at one particular candidate, which I'll also make general rather than try to give everybody equal time. So with that, I will start again, back in the same order I just greeted everybody with, and ask Mr. Dunham for his opening statement. And you may not want to use the mic.
Yes, my name is Keenan Dunham. I'm very glad to be here. I'm an activist. I've been an activist for more than 10 years, and I was a Democrat until 2012. I really became disheartened with the party and started in the Libertarian Party. I have a very succinct 4-point industrial plan for my campaign. That is to 100% legalize marijuana, which of course a lot of us agree on, that's great. And build solar, green energy just by opening up more of the land leasing in the western states. I think that's important for industry and a key factor in our future. Eliminate the personal income tax completely for a 9% sales tax that is non-food. I think that's low and on a reasonable level to not hinder the economy, and also freeze the economy, giving us all our personal income taxes back. And then I have a plan for NASA, which I've researched 10 ways that NASA can fund itself. I just want to sort of put that out there. That's the least important on those 4 plans, but I think it is important for our future. Thank you.
Candidate is Gary Johnson.
Why am I running for president? I happen to think that being president of the United States might be one of humankind's greatest experiences, all right? Secondly, I think I could do a really good job at being president of the United States. And I base that on 3 things. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, so I understand what it is to grow a business from 1 person to 1,000 people. I know how government and business interact, and I just don't want government to add time and money to my life if it really doesn't accomplish anything. Secondly, I got elected governor of New Mexico. I'd never been involved in politics before prior to getting elected governor in New Mexico as a Republican in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat. I made a name for myself vetoing legislation. I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I gotta tell you, I'm a real skeptic when it comes to government, and bottom line, does it make things better? Does this bill make things better, or does it just add time and money to our lives and not really accomplishing anything? Well, the skeptic that I was and am vetoed that kind of legislation. And I think it really made a difference. And in a state that was 2-1 Democrat, I got reelected by a bigger margin the second time than the first time. I'm not making this up. In New Mexico, people wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. I've been an athlete. What have I learned from athletics? Well, what I've learned from athletics is you just don't give up. So in the context of not giving up, having done this in 2012, I would not be doing this right now if there weren't the opportunity to win. The table's been set, and the only way a third-party candidate can win is to be in the presidential debates. And right now, 3 weeks ago, I polled at 11%. Never once have I said I'm going to be the Libertarian nominee. This is a process. I'm engaged in this process. I hope to be the Libertarian nominee, and I'm working hard to accomplish that. Thank you.
Kevin.
I'll go ahead and use the microphone. Nobody's ever told me they have trouble hearing me when I speak. But so I'm Kevin McCormick. For most of you in the room, today is the first time we've met. But I am not new to the Libertarian Party. I first identified myself as Libertarian in 1996 when I had my first opportunity to vote for President of the United States. And I cast my ballot for Harry Brown. Since then, I have voted Libertarian in every election and have lived my life sharing the principles of our party. I'm a native of Columbus, Ohio. I started attending college as a senior in high school, went on to graduate from Ohio University with a degree in engineering and finance, and I've spent my entire career working in the technology industry, securing systems in the privacy of Americans. I currently reside in Phoenix, Arizona, with my wonderful wife and supportive wife, Jennifer, and our 2 small children, including one that's turning 4 tomorrow. So I'm sorry I won't be here all night, but she made me promise that I'd be home for her birthday party. So I'm going to be getting on that red eye and getting there. And in addition to that, in 2004, I self-taught myself stock options trading. In 2008, I built some of the first iPhone applications in my first company. I have the background and technology interest and knowledge necessary to drive this party forward. I jumped into this race on March 17th. I did not join this because I'm a politician or I'm a millionaire backed by special interest groups. I'm doing this because we have the opportunity of a lifetime to share the libertarian message and properly introduce it to Americans across the country. But make no doubt about it, we're missing our opportunity right now. When I announced my campaign on March 17th, in 1 week, I reached hundreds of thousands of people through media interviews, social media. Stories about me ran in Phoenix, one of the largest markets in the country, almost 10 times during Super Tuesday. That media attention led to me finishing 3rd in the most recent Libertarian poll on the Libertarian website, finishing ahead of McAfee 1 week into the campaign. I know how to drive these voters into action, get them off their couches and into the polls in November, and that's who we need as our presidential candidate. Thank you.
Derrick Reid, and then I'll start with Mr. Perry and come this way with questions.
Greetings, Libertarians. My name is Derrick Michael Reid, and I'm seeking the nomination. I am an engineer, a lawyer, a military scientist, a bullion banking finance market analyst, and a geopolitical analyst. I have led engineering teams, legal teams, finance teams, and military teams successfully. I've analyzed the legal, social, economic fabric of our society, have determined the systemic problems facing the country, the causes of those problems, and have devised a comprehensive solution set. I am the only libertarian candidate who has a libertarian message that will appeal to 90% of the voters. I'm the only libertarian candidate that has a solution set that will appeal to 90% of the voters. I have the skill set, the knowledge base to take down any Democrat or Republican nominee. If you want to increase your membership this summer, if you want to win the White House, if you want to restore the Constitution, the Republic, and capitalism, if you want economic prosperity, if you want global peace, if you want liberties and freedoms in your lives now, I am your only guy. Thank you.
Last but not least is Darryl Perry, and with your indulgence, I think we got the rest of it. Yeah, for
I'm Darryl Perry, and I represent the Libertarian wing of the Libertarian Party. When I first joined the Libertarian Party in 1999, the party proudly proclaimed itself as the party of principle. But over the last 15 plus years, the party has become a party of watered down messages and half measures. When I joined the party in 1999, we were not advocating for new forms of taxation. We were not advocating for new forms of regulation. We were saying no taxes, no regulations, and that's what we need to proclaim again. And I believe that I'm the candidate that can once again make the Libertarian Party be that party of principle that so many people joined in the 1990s and the early 2000s when the Libertarian Party had growing membership, was because the Libertarian Party had a principled message. Once the message started becoming watered down, you've seen membership decline. And I say that it's time to make the Libertarian Party the party of principle again.
hold the mic, and with your indulgence,
Does Will get a statement?
Pardon?
Does Will get a statement?
Right, I'm going to do him, but wait, hold on to, yeah.
Okay.
We'll start you on your end. Okay, Mr. Wayne Coley is seeking the vice presidential nominee. Just want to make that clear. He'll be making a statement.
Good afternoon, and thank you for welcoming me to North Carolina and to your state convention this weekend. My name is William Coley. I am, I guess, a business owner, a conservationist, a farmer. I run a small farm devoted to conservation of endangered livestock in East Tennessee. I also run a small business, and I'm a father of 7 beautiful children and the husband of a beautiful wife. I have spent the last 11 years of my life working in liberty activism. I have organized libertarian activists on 3 continents, at least 12 countries. I've worked with a group in Pakistan who has established the very first money-free precious metals bank debit card system that is actually up and functioning today. I've organized libertarians in Iran, Malaysia, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and in other places all over the globe. We've seen 20,000 Turks take over a park over restrictions to free speech. 81% of those people self-identify as libertarians. I've been working for at least 6 years now in growing the ideas of liberty on the international stage. And that's what I hope to bring to the ticket as the vice president, is someone who has the ability and the knowledge not only to appeal to Americans, but to spread the ideas of liberty once in office to places around the globe that it's not particularly known for. And the way we'll do that is by changing the conversation around issues like foreign policy and bringing someone to the table who has an expertise both in the understanding of the theology, as a person who has studied Islamic jurisprudence at the university level for 11 years and lectured on it for 5 years, and someone who understands the cultures and can bring a conversation to the table in our foreign policy discussions of mutual respect and spreading liberty without hellfire missiles. Thank you.
First question I'll ask all candidates to answer, even though it was addressed specifically to Gary Johnson, and it's from one of our Kate, who is doing a paper on libertarianism.
I am. Libertarianism, like why you should be a libertarian instead of a Democrat or Republican.
Right. So the question is, I'm a teenager, and I'm continuously surprised by the misconceptions my peers have about libertarianism. what do you think is the best way for myself and others to introduce young adults to libertarian ideals and persuade them to consider libertarianism?
Well, what I would say is that you really need to get them to understand what libertarianism is. And libertarianism, I think everybody here is going to define it slightly differently. If you ask 10 libertarians to define libertarianism, you'll probably get a dozen answers. But the way that I describe it is self-ownership, that you own yourself, and equal right, meaning that everybody in this room has the same rights as everybody else in this room. No one has the right to take the property of their neighbor. Nobody has the right to deprive anyone unjustly of the fruits of their labor. And if I don't have that right, nobody else sitting up here has the right. If we gather together as a group, I can't delegate the right to anyone else. It doesn't matter if you call that group a government. No one has a legitimate right to deprive you of your life, liberty, or your justly acquired property.
I would say the main reason that a person would want to become libertarian is that it is the actual principles that this country was founded on, that every person is free, and we should also respect all other people's freedom. And of course, we are on the cusp of a lot of issues that are important for the country to go in those directions. So, you have to look at the specific issues of why a person would swing libertarian as opposed to remain in the Democratic or Republican Party. Really, the Republican and Democratic parties aren't doing anything but sitting on the wealth of the country. And they don't know how to create any more direction technologically. It's just a bureaucracy. So, if you want to look at the active party in the country, it's the Libertarian Party. Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing is penetration. We could have the best pitch, the best message, and it wouldn't mean a thing if we were all sitting here telling it to each other and could not get that message out to the general public. And that, I think, is our very first trick, is to figure out a way to get this message of freedom and liberty out of this room and out into the general public. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by reestablishing. We're not establishing anything. This is how the Libertarian Party started. We are the true party of progress and tolerance. And the public no longer knows that. We have gotten a bad rap over the course of the last 25 years as the party of Republican extremism, basically. That if you think of a position that Republicans take that you don't like, find the most extreme version of that, and that's probably what libertarians believe. When everybody in this room knows that that could not be farther from the truth. And what we need to do is reestablish that idea that the true party of tolerance, the true party of progress, is the Libertarian Party. Because the only real progress that matters is every step forward toward more freedom.
So we sent a film crew out on the streets in New York. This was a couple months ago, and asked 40 people what it was to be a libertarian. Well, zero. Nobody had a clue. So this is a soundbite world, and here's the soundbite I've come up with, and I'm going to be here all day. So if anybody has a better soundbite, please let me know. But you got about 15 seconds when it comes to a soundbite. So I say that libertarianism is being fiscally conservative and socially liberal, the definition of a classic liberal, which most people are. In the context of government, that means smaller government all across the board. Bottom line, government tries to do too much. It taxes too much. When it taxes us too much, it takes away our own personal freedom and liberty to do what it is that we want to do. And then on the personal side, being personally liberal, socially liberal. Well, that's a woman's right to choose. That's legalizing marijuana. That's marriage equality. That's all those decisions that you and I, as individuals, should be able to make as long as those decisions don't put other people in harm's way.
So, Kat, it's a great question, and it's actually one of the main reasons why I jumped into the race. We have a problem with our messaging. people don't understand our messaging. We need to get back to why I identified myself as libertarian in 1996. And that's what my platform is running on right now, is your personal freedom, privacy, free speech, and a smaller government. The Republicans and Democrats all claim to have those as part of their platform, but they've shown us over the last 50 years that it is not part of their platform. We have a current Supreme Court case going on right now where the states felt that you have to give up your Fourth Amendment right to drive a car. You can't refuse to not be searched and have your bodily fluids submitted for testing unless you want to, if you want to drive a car in these states. This is ridiculous. And this is we have so many opportunities to stand up and reach out to these people and show them that we are the party that's going to defend your rights, because no one else is doing it.
That was wonderful, figuring out a way. It's been solved. I've done it because I've taken a look at it. The message of the Libertarian Party basically is a great one. Minimum government, maximum freedom, mutual tolerance. We must add the word mutual. It's not a one-way street. Many talk about the war on drugs. It ain't going to sell to 90% of Americans. I translate it into the war on totalitarianism. Some talk about personal ownership. I translate that into protecting natural rights between federal and state federalism. We must answer the basic question to be libertarian, and it's simple. We want to increase our liberties and freedoms from government. That government currently is a totalitarian, socialistic, fascist government enslaving our countrymen as tax mules, perpetual debtors, and state dependents. And we want our liberty and freedom back. Thank you.
Okay, first question from the delegates. Often candidates are asked, what's the first thing they're going to do as president? What are they going to abolish? I mean, this is kind of a take on that. What is your plan to get Congress to resume its duty? How you get congressmen to do their jobs? And we'll just go back this way.
The easiest thing to solve in my mind is immigration. I will immediately shut down the border and end all sanctuary cities. And I will go to Congress with a plan that will solve immigration. And it has to do with path to citizenship without amnesty. And it has to do with controlling immigration to allow new immigrants time to assimilate into a culture of democracy, liberty, freedom, and capitalism. If you do not control the borders, problems are caused within the country. That would be the first thing, because it is the most simplest to solve. As far as the amount of immigration and illegal that are here today, you simply tally up those who want to become U.S. citizens and subtract it from future immigration so that the country of origin bears the responsibility of that crime. Thank you.
It's actually a lot easier to get our Congress to work together than anyone realizes. First step, elect a libertarian with a very clear platform. If I'm elected, I won't be signing a single bill that violates our freedom, free speech, privacy, and increases the size of the government. Those are the rules Congress is going to have to work around. Today, what the Congress does is they try to get the executive office to match their party so they can push their policies through. If I'm sitting in an office, they have to work together if they're going to pass anything. Because I have put together a very clear-cut plan that if you put a bill in front of me that's going to increase government spending, it's going to be vetoed. So if you want to get that bill passed, you guys have to get together and start working together, or else we're just not going to pass anything for the next 4 years. And some people think that's that's a problem. But I think gridlock in our Congress not invading our rights anymore for the next 4 years is the best solution possible for us.
I think the biggest problem facing this country right now is that government is too big, that it taxes too much. And I really think that if government continues to spend the amount of money that it's spending, that at some point we're going to suffer a crisis, and it will be the result of inflation, and it'll be horrible inflation. So if I were to take office as President of the United States, same thing as Governor of New Mexico, I would immerse myself in the dollars and cents of government. I would know more about the budget than anyone else, and I would propose a balanced budget. Now, of course, it's Congress that would have to submit that balanced budget, so I'm going to always sign on to things that make things better. Count on that. Balancing the federal budget, too much spending, make that happen. Don't discount the power of the executive. As the President of the United States, you run federal government. So government will be smaller if a person is elected, if a libertarian is elected president that is bent on making government smaller. It will happen. It happened with me as governor of New Mexico with a legislature that was gridlocked because I vetoed everything it was that they sent to me.
Well, my answer is going to be a little bit different than what these guys offered because my position is a little bit different than where these guys are running for. But my personal opinion is the first thing we need to do is stop making Congress a career. You know, get rid of the people who are causing the problems to start with. We have a 91, 96% reelection rate for a Congress that has an approval rating of below 20%. So I guess the first thing that I would do is I would suggest to whoever the president is that I'm running with once we get into office is why don't we start floating ideas for bills to cut their pay? I think people in Congress should make no more money than any one of us do here. Congress has become too lucrative of a position. It's become a place where people go as debtors and come out as millionaires. And I think dropping their salaries down to, I think $35,000 a year sounds good. Would be a good way to keep people out of these positions that their only goal is to come in, pass laws, help their cronies, help their buddies out, and use your money and my money to pad the pockets of special interests.
Yes, I would definitely legalize marijuana, first of all, 100%. And there are libertarian-leaning other Republicans and Democrats who would go along with that, so that's possible. You know, I want to cut the Department of Defense's budget by 20%. Would definitely do that, and would just continue to push the issues that are pertinent to the Libertarian Party and to our principles. I would also sign a Civil Rights Act of that year that includes complete stipulation in Title VII for gender identity and sexual orientation. I think we need to make that change as soon as possible. The bills are sitting there in Congress for that specifically, in the Senate and the House, but they are not being worked on. So there's plenty that's there. We need to push the issues and gain allies. Thank you.
The first four things I would do after taking office January 20th, 2017, pardon Private Chelsea Manning, pardon political prisoner Ross Ulbricht, drop all charges against whistleblower Edward Snowden, offer him free passage back to the United States if he wants to return. And then there would be a blanket pardon for all federal nonviolent drug offenders. Now, as far as working with Congress, most people say, how would a libertarian work with those Republicans and Democrats in Congress? Well, things don't happen in a vacuum. If a libertarian gets elected president in November of 2016, you can guarantee that there will be libertarians in the legislative branch in 2016 getting elected. So what you could then do is try to work with them to further the libertarian agenda. I would also encourage the legislature to read every bill. If they don't read the bill or don't have time to read the bill, it gets vetoed. If it deals with more than one subject, it gets vetoed. If it authorizes bureaucrats to write stuff that has the force of law, it gets vetoed.
The next question is very important to North Carolina, since we do have a lot of military bases, and we have military people. Some of them are veterans here, and as libertarians, surprisingly enough, some of our chapters have a lot of active duty military that are part of their active contingent. So the question is, very simply, what is your approach to disengaging U.S. Armed Forces from World War III, aka War on Terror?
Well, I have often described the global war on terror as a drunken bar fight with missiles instead of beer bottles and bar stools. And what I mean by that is nobody remembers who threw the first punch. They don't even remember when the first punch was thrown, but people are throwing punches and beer bottles and swinging bar stools, so we've got to do the same thing. Well, you don't win a war on terror by committing terroristic acts. You don't win a drunken bar fight by continuing to partake in the drunken bar fight. As it was said in the movie War Games, the only way you win is to not play the game. The only way you win a global war on terror is to stop participating in the global war on terror.
I would say the first thing we need to do is stop weapons proliferation by our own country to rebel groups. I would not give any weapons to NGOs, non-government organizations. If Iraq asks for help, we should deal with only Iraq, the country, the nation itself, the government. And we need to bring back a lot of our troops from foreign bases, close a lot of foreign bases. That is part of the 20% cut that I would take. And we need to pay soldiers and take care of the veterans. Thank you very much.
Well, I can tell you one thing, the way we're doing it right now isn't working. The 16 years that we like to acknowledge, more like 66 years that we've actually been involved in the Middle East, toppling governments, funding coups, creating the winners and losers, much like our government does in our own business cycle here in the United States. We do this with governments in foreign countries. The Obama administration, when Egypt democratically elected a leader, the Obama administration decided they didn't like that leader, gave $1.5 billion of American taxpayer-funded weapons to the military in Egypt so that they could stage a coup and overthrow an democratically elected government. This is the first thing that we have to stop. We have to stop sending weapons and money to countries that we know are openly and actively funding extremist groups. The second thing is psychological warfare. And I know this sounds a little strange, but there is a set of terminology that could be used, that could be employed today, right now, that could be used to discredit extremist groups in the Middle East simply by using 3 or 4 words different than the ones that we are today, creating a different mental image, both for the public in the Middle East, negative association with these organizations rather than a theological one.
Well, if this country is attacked, we're going to attack back. But let's stop with the military interventions. Let's stop with the unintended consequences of putting boots on the ground, of dropping bombs, of flying drones that are killing thousands of people. Take Iraq and Iran, for example. We go in, we take out Saddam Hussein, and the unintended consequence is all of a sudden we've cut off the head of the Hydra, but now we have Iran to deal with. I mean, that's an unintended consequence of having taken Saddam Hussein out. We're going to continue to spend billions of dollars on defense, but let's not spend a penny on empire. Let's stop with foreign aid. The fact that we're building roads, schools, bridges, highways, and hospitals halfway around the world when we have those same needs here today, let's do that. Cut the military spending by 20%. And I use 20% because that's the amount of money that we need to cut from the budget to balance the federal budget. We would only need to go back a handful of years to accomplish that when it comes to the military.
First step to solving this problem is admitting that we created the problem. These people didn't learn how to shoot these weapons and missiles and all those things without our help. We trained them because at the time they were shooting at the people we wanted them to shoot at, but the reality is eventually they get bored and turn around and shoot at us. So let's stop giving them weapons and giving them the best training possible by our military to learn how to later in their life shoot at us. Now, I work in the high-tech industry, and we always are trying to think of that other option C that no one has in front of them. We have companies, Google, SpaceX, and Facebook, all trying to find a way to beam the internet from the sky down to make money. Well, we have that capability today in our US military. If we stop using our drones to drop bombs, but instead use it to push information down to these countries where we're feeling threats from them, what do you think scares a dictator more? Dropping a bomb and killing innocent civilians that will then turn around and go for his cause? Or giving them access to information they don't want to have? You want to see Iran get scared? Tell them they're going to fly drones over their country and give their people free information, and so they can see how the rest of the world is operating. That is the kind of scare that gets a dictator to stand up and take notice.
Anyone who panders a balanced budget has no clue as to the monetary state of the country. The problem is not budgetary. The problem is insolvency. The Ponzi coupon is ready to implode. The problem with intervention and terror go hand in hand, and it has to do with power plays. You must understand the root causes. The Russians are playing the Shia, the US are playing the Sunni for global power, and that incites a lot of terrorism coming out of the Middle East. My goal is to unite US, Russia, China, and the EU as a moving force for global dispute resolutions and further peace. I plan to reduce the military footprint 50%, use nodal bases to launch at forward bases in the event of a threat. We also have to stop the ignoble foreign policy that is driven by the military-industrial, banking, and transnational complex for greed. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to mix it up here. I'm going to start in the middle with Governor Johnson, and we'll go that way and then come back. Wait a minute, I got another question. We're done with that question. Now, the next question also is kind of related to North Carolina because we have a lot of tech industries. Would the tech, this is from YouTube. This is being webcast and we posted it on our channel. Would the tech industry be successful without government subsidies?
Absolutely, the tech industry would be okay without government subsidies. Look, I am proposing eliminating income tax, eliminating corporate tax. As a result of doing those two things, we could also eliminate the IRS. Imagine life without the IRS. Now, I, as President of the United States, can only sign legislation that Congress is going to present me. So believe me, I'm going to sign off on eliminating income tax, corporate tax, abolishing the IRS. But I don't think they're going to submit a bill to simplify the tax system without replacing it with something. So I advocate replacing it with a national consumption tax. I say use the fair tax as a template for how to accomplish that. How do you dot the I's and cross the T's when it comes to implementing a national consumption tax? And if eliminating corporate tax doesn't create tens of millions of jobs in this country, nothing else will.
Subsidies are nothing more than government picking winners and losers in the business world. That's all it is. It's the opportunity for the state to say, I like you. Let me write you a check. And that's basically what it is. And what it's done is it's completely destabilized our entire economic system. So now you have farmers who have great land for farming, and they're being paid thousands and tens of thousands of dollars by the government to let that land sit fallow, while we have people going hungry all across this country. This is what subsidies bring you. Every time the government puts money in from someone else's pocket, that money, if you write a check to me, someone gives me money, I have no, there's no reason for me to spend that money responsibly. There's no reason for me to use that money in a responsible manner. There's no reason for me to grow, to invest, because you're just going to write me another check in a year. So why use that money to make my business better? Why use that money to expand so I can hire new employees? Why use that money in a responsible manner when the government's literally just going to write me another check in a year? And until we get past the point where the government picks the winners and losers in our economy instead of the market, the problems that we see in our market will never change. The poverty will stay, the high taxes will stay, everything that you see around you that we're not happy with will continue so long as government is the one who chooses winners and losers rather than the market.
I would say I probably wouldn't cut subsidies at this time. I really would have to analyze if it's a waste. Certainly there's waste in the government, so it's probably on levels that are wasteful, but it's not the highest priority for cutting the government for me. So I would say I would put forth plans to invest in green energy and NASA and not really worry about the question exactly the way it was proposed. Thank you.
So the question was, would the tech industry flourish absent government subsidies? And I would say that yes, it would. We're already seeing things that are popping up tech-wise in spite of government interference. I have so far 3 times today used this wonderful technology called Uber that allows me to grab my smartphone, put, I'm at this location, I want to go to this location. And within a couple of minutes, someone is there picking me up in their car. I actually know somebody that created a competitor to Uber that even more decentralizes the ride-sharing industry. That's called Arcade City. I know somebody that developed an application to decentralize mutual aid. If your house is on fire and you know that your next door neighbors have giant water hoses, you can go to cell 411 and put, I have an emergency, and it decentralizes mutual aid. When seconds matter, the cops are minutes away, but your neighbors are right next door.
Confusing.
Yeah. So the tech industry is the biggest example of the free market of our lifetime. The internet didn't occur and all these businesses occur because the government came in to help. They occurred because barriers have been broken down. You have the ability now to start a business online for a few $1,000s and reach millions of people. There is no need for a government subsidy at all in here. We have the internet infrastructure we have in place today thanks to the deregulation of the AT&T in the 90s, which created 7 Baby Bells and other smaller companies that built out the internet infrastructure we have. Many of those companies went bankrupt, but money was thrown into these businesses, and then they eventually were gobbled up by the bigger players. And now that we're down to just 3 phone companies, guess what they're asking? They want regulations to protect themselves. They want the government to come in and protect their businesses now. No. We have this great tech industry because the government was never involved in the process. We don't need subsidies to grow these businesses. We need the government to be not involved in the tech industry and let us continue to innovate. That's what we need.
Proposing to abolish the IRS is pander. Who's going to collect the money to pay our soldiers in North Carolina? The biggest problem that we have, and you must understand the root causes or it's mere pander, is a trade deficit. I will balance trade between all nations, and in so doing, the manufacturing base will recover and monies and economic growth will spur more high technology companies. One thing we have to do is downsize the Department of Education, get away from enslaving our students with loans, but rather no strings attached, university grants and scholarships, depending upon budget allowance, to further the knowledge base in the country. And we want to get federal research labs that I've worked with for 2 decades to parlay with high-tech companies for increasing our knowledge base. Thank you.
Everybody get a chance to ask my question?
Yes.
Okay. this is kind of a, this question, the questioner asked to begin your answer with a yes or no. So if you want to just do that and not go into your 1 minute, feel free to do that.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Do you promise to veto any budget which increases total federal debt or total amount of federal spending? And you can begin, you want to begin your answer with a yes or no. We'll start with Mr. Reid.
No, I plan to change the monetary system back to bullion. And so I will destroy the fiat dollar. And that may include spending $100 trillion to do so as we integrate the the Federal Reserve System under the Department of Treasury and reinstate real, honest money back in circulation to free Americans from the DC printing press. Thank you.
I hit on this a little earlier. Yes is the answer. I want to take it even a step further. When we're looking at spending, there will be no increased spending unless it's offset by current revenues. And that's a very key important part, current revenues. We're no longer going to operate on imaginary future revenues when we're doing our budgeting. We will build and we will, if we have spending, it needs to be offset by a current revenue. We have a recession that's coming in the next couple of years. All of the models they put together are false because those revenues aren't going to be there when we get into a recession. All spending should be aligned with current revenues that we have coming in to the U.S. Treasury.
So the answer is yes, but if you veto legislation that, say, reduces spending, but because it doesn't balance the budget, and then continuing resolutions kick in because it's been vetoed that actually enable government to spend as much money as it was before, you know, it's a bit complicated. In New Mexico, the legislature refused to cut government like I wanted to cut it, but they kept on submitting bills that I was either going to have to sign or there would be no budget. So what I ended up doing was signing off on these budgets and then basically having the agencies bank the money. And so that when I left office, there was $1 billion in surplus in all the agencies.
Not my circus, not my monkeys. So I'm running for VP, so I actually don't have an answer to this question. Now, under some circumstance, God forbid that the presidential candidate that I run with, we get into office and something should happen to him, of course, I would veto any budget that raised the budget. But at this point in the game, I guess the best person to answer that question will be on the other side.
I would answer yes to that question. I would also end the Federal Reserve as a private entity, bring its duties into the White House, and certainly cut red tape for counter currencies like Bitcoin or any other counter currencies that use encryption. Encryption should be the reliance in the future for currency, not on gold and not on the military. Certainly a guarantee of safety of your currency. Thank you.
I would veto any bill that increased spending, anything that comes across my desk that they call a decrease. If it's one of these, we're decreasing the increase. Well, that's still an increase in spending. It gets vetoed. What they've been doing recently with that sequester that happened about 1.5 years ago, where they say it was a 3% cut, but it was a 3% cut in the proposed increases where everything was going to increase 2% instead of 5%. That's not a cut, that's an increase. It gets vetoed.
I have time for about 1 or 2 more questions, so I'll try to be brief. Libertarians are awfully, I'm sorry.
Speak up or you need the mic.
I said we probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions, so I'm trying to be brief. Libertarians are often accused of being not caring for the poor, people out of work, the unfortunate, and all that. So how would you best allay the concern that voluntary charity would be insufficient at meeting the needs of our communities? Start with Mr. Perry.
We brought it down here.
Okay.
Please repeat the question.
How do we best allay the concern that voluntary charity would be insufficient at meeting the needs of our communities?
The problem is concentrated systemic socialism at the federal level. Collective human compassion is honorable. My plan is to migrate all social services at the federal level back onto the states, under the republic, following the Constitution, and allow each of the states to decide for themselves what extent of honorable, compassionate safety nets they would like to have. I follow the Constitution, and that means states' rights. That means restoring the republic. You could call it libertarian socialism if you want, but where you have a local community voting to support minimal safety nets, I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
You'd be amazed how much less money you need when your local communities are in control of what happens in their communities. You know, I grew up in a small town. In our small town, when someone needed help, someone would step up to help you. And it's one of those things that we have lost in America through our politics and through what we do. You got to know your neighbors, know your community, get to know your community. If someone in your community needs help, we will step up as Americans. We see it every time a tragedy happens here at home or abroad. Americans open their wallets and millions of dollars comes outpouring. When someone needs help, we step up. That's part of the reason why we've gotten ourselves into these messes in our wars, because we were always thinking we were going to help. Get the government out of the way and let us take care of our own communities and help the people locally. The person who is local knows what help is needed more than our government.
I do believe that there are people in need, and that but for government, those people would not receive basic services that they do need. But we've gone way over the line when it comes to those in need. So I think the biggest problem facing the country is spending. I'm proposing a 20% reduction in federal spending. That's unprecedented. But to accomplish that, you're going to have to take on welfare. You're going to have to take on Medicaid. You're going to have to take on Medicare. In my heart of hearts, if the federal government were to have block granted the state of New Mexico 20% less money for Medicare, something that the states currently don't do, and for Medicaid, currently what the states do administrate over, in my heart of hearts, I could have overseen the administration of 20% less money being spent in these two areas. 50 laboratories of innovation. The states give these programs back to the states. You're going to have spectacular success that will get emulated. You're going to have horrible failure that will get avoided. Federal government incapable of doing.
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is express to the public that there's lots of times that charity is trying where government simply needs to get out of the way. You have people who are trying to feed the homeless of the own volition of their heart, who are ending up in jail cells because the city does not want the competition, because you or I feeding those individuals is competition for tax revenues that they could pull in to put into the pockets of their friends and cronies in different levels.
Hell yeah.
I know of a small doctor's office in the state of Florida. It's in Orlando. It's on Goldenrod Road. While we're at the national convention, I can take you there. Only problem is it's only open one day a month. Why? Because the state of Florida told a group of doctors who got together and decided to establish a free medical clinic where these doctors would give their medical ability to the public for free to those in need, and the state said no. We'll allow you to have it, we'll allow you to open it, we'll allow you to operate, but you're only allowed to operate 1 year, one day a month. Well, why? Well, because the health department, the state-run health department, doesn't want the competition. If you're offering free medical care, then those people will not come to us. You heard that right. A group of doctors got together, they put together a free medical clinic, and they were told by the government, you cannot give free medical care to the public because you will compete with the government monopoly on charity in healthcare. If you get the government out of the way of individuals, charity on the personal level can work. But until we get rid of the government monopolies in these areas, charity will continue to be the small, minuscule, ineffective thing that it has been up till now.
As far as this issue, I think the biggest factor will be cutting taxes. And if we eliminate the personal income tax and put money back in people's hands, then they'll be able to take care of themselves. And the other ways that I and others want to minimize government are going to put back in control of people in control of their own lives. And I do believe in local charity. I participate in local activism as well as feeding the homeless. And yes, we do need to remove all restrictions on that. And community gardens, the ways that communities can work together can bridge many gaps. Thank you.
Government-run welfare is incredibly inefficient. Statistics show that somewhere between 2/3 to 3/4 of all spending on government welfare winds up going to pay middle-class bureaucrats to sit there and shuffle papers and then oversee the distribution of help to the poor and the needy. Whereas with private charity, it's the complete opposite, and the 75% going to the people that are aimed at being helped is on the low end of good charities. Really good charities put somewhere between 95 to 100% of donations to the cause for which they're aimed to support. One of those is an organization that I've been involved with since 2010 called Shire Sharing, where they donate Thanksgiving meals to low-income people for Thanksgiving, and they've increased that greatly from about a dozen households the first year to over 600 last year.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. We're just about out of time. We're going to take I want to let the candidates leave the podium so we can set up for we have two videos from some candidates. And while we're doing that, while the candidates go, I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for being here. I know, having been involved in a couple of presidential campaigns, I know it's hard to be every place at the same time. Just for the record, you guys are in North Carolina today, so if you have and I want to give you a memento to take with you so that you know that you were here. If I can take them out of my pocket, a little pin here, everybody take one. And thank you for being here, and stick around and meet the delegates after.
Thank you all very much. If you would, let's not break yet. While we say